I don't find men threatening me sexy no matter how hot they are. I simply do not yearn to be an NFL wife. If your sequel is so bad that I wish to reflect on it as a positive thing I talked about in a discussion with my ex-boyfriend following the untimely death of my father, send back the wolves, put down the pitchforks. I'll explain in another video. Oh my God, please. I just started recording. Can we not fight right now? You guys are stressing me out. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Gia. I am a 27, almost 28-year-old lady who, yes, still lives in my mom's basement. I have been wanting to make a return to YouTube for a while, but I also took a very long break from reading in 2024. I will explain, please, before I have to give the inevitable where have I been video and why I stopped reading video. I wanted to do something fun, and this is called Books I Refuse to Read and You Cannot Convince Me. Basically, when I was finding myself wanting to go back into reading, I was trying to think to myself, how do I want to tackle this? Do I want to read for fun? Do I want to read for structure? Do I want to read for reviews, videos? Like, what do I want to do in this like re-entry back back into reading? Because yet still, when I started this journey back in 2022, I have still not read all the books that I said I was going to read, and that will be a video. That will be a video, actually. There are so many books out there that I just haven't gotten to, and when I was thinking about all the books that I wanted to read, all the books that I haven't read, all the books I want to reread, I also wanted to think about the books that I don't want to read at all, period, end of. You cannot convince me. Being a lover is important first and foremost, but being a hater is also important. Second most. Truthfully, I don't even know if that made any sense. It is past 10 p.m. Okay, it was now or never. Okay, I figured I might as well just turn the camera on and just do it. There are 13 items on this list, and it is either a specific book, if it is like a standalone or like the most well-known book in a series, a specific series, or a specific author, because yes, I do have authors that I have put off forever. Number one, I am coming in hot. It is the Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafi. TikTok girlies, please put down your pitchforks, because you will have to raise them again, because this is not the first time that a favorite of yours is on this list. This book came out in 2011. For context, I was about 14, almost 15 years old, so I was a freshman in high school. This came out hot off the presses, and it was meant for these little fingies right here, but for some reason, it didn't mesh with me. It didn't interest me. I picked up The Hunger Games, I picked up Divergent, I picked up The Maze Runner, I picked up Delirium, but for some reason this and The Selection escaped me. I did read The Selection in 2022, I think, and I think I rated it 3 stars, and I decided to not continue with the series. There was something about this series that I just didn't like. Later, it became an aversion to this specific quote that I kept seeing float around. I don't like it. It gives me the ick for some reason. I can't really describe the visceral ick that it gives me. I think one thing that really averted me from this is the fact that it's supposed to be a dystopian, but there's a girl in a homecoming dress on the front cover, and The Selection kind of had the same problem, where I wasn't quite sure if this was going to be a dystopian or if it was going to be The Bachelor, and in the case of The Selection, I found that to be both. And that's not to its detriment. I'm just explaining what my 15-year-old brain would have considered to be an ick back then, and honestly that may have been what partially repelled me. I don't know if that was for any particular reason or if that's just a coincidence. But if you were to hand this to me now and tell me to read it and tell me that it's a dystopian novel with a romance underneath, I would say no. That's a romance with a dystopia, not a romance in a dystopia. You see what I'm saying? And then everything I've ever heard about the book ever is just Aaron Warner. Yes, I know his name because I'm on TikTok, but Aaron Warner committing war crimes, and Juliet is like, but I still love him. And maybe I just don't have the nostalgic attachment to be able to excuse like Aaron Warner's specific war crimes or crimes against humanity, generic, but it just doesn't grip me the way that I think it would have in an alternate version of 15-year-old me. And that's to say that I really can't say anything about it other than it completely disinterested me, and then everything else I've ever learned about it after the fact has been both against my will and given me a huge, massive ick. If you like this, good for you. I wish I could see some enjoyment in it. Number 2, I'm going to continue making you mad. It is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I listened to the Once Upon a Broken Heart audiobook back in 2023, and I just remember picking flowers in World of Warcraft, you know what I do when I don't have much else to do but I want to listen to an audiobook, and I'm just flying in a circle picking herbs, and I just have this look of confusion on my face as I'm listening to this audiobook because I genuinely am lost. I am confused. And then I found out it was more like a sequel series or a side sequel series to Caraval, in which a side character got their own series. And so I kind of understood that there's going to be some things that I don't understand or that I didn't quite get because I didn't read the original trilogy. But my God, after I read Once Upon a Broken Heart, I could not have been less interested in reading Caraval in the first place. I am once again aging myself to tell you that Caraval came out after I graduated high school. It came out while I was in college, and I remember it being talked about, and yet I still was not interested enough to pick the book up. I would say that everything I've ever learned about this series has been against my will, but that would be a lie, because Reads with Rachel did an entire deconstruction and takedown of this entire trilogy, and honestly, some of the most interesting YouTube television I have ever absorbed in my lifetime. I have a lot of respect for Rachel. I find her to be incredibly thorough with her reviews. Rachel is my favorite booktube content creator. We do have some difference in tastes, but a lot of where we overlap is in the books that we like and in the books that specifically we don't like. And when she did the videos taking down Caraval, I treasure that in my memory bank. Like when I'm thinking about rewatching the Pretty Little Liars recap that Mike's Mike did, and I think about like rewatching that trilogy like twice a year, I'm doing the same thing with this Caraval takedown. The next one is another book that is quite popular on BookTube and on Book Talk, but it is A Little Life. The main thing that you hear about this book is that it's going to make you cry. Number one, that is not really something I wish to get out of any reading experience, but number two, it really doesn't go into the other reasons why some people find that this book distressing. This list of trigger warnings from a reader off of Goodreads. The first few are enough for me to say, nope, it's not for me, and I would be very upset if I went into reading the book without knowing what was in it as somebody who has survived CSA and SA. So personally, it is not for me. I actually heard from one of my coworkers recently who did read it, and I asked her about it, and she said, yep, it is definitely very sad and very graphic. And I said, great, then it is not for me. Okay, it's time for me to have a basic ass opinion. I refuse to read anything by Colleen Hoover. I could probably go into about a 10-minute long YouTube video's length of explanation as to why I would not read anything by Colleen Hoover, and that is not anything the book title, that is anything as in any of her books. Colleen Hoover has written a lot of books. However, a lot of her very popular books center around a female protagonist who has to, in some way, but usually at the hands of an abusive partner, suffer before she is deserving of finding good love or true love. It's kind of giving in a sick and twisted way, hell was the journey, but it brought me heaven. And I really don't appreciate that because I don't think that it sends a good message to young women that you have to go through a bad relationship before you can earn a good one. Because I myself have been through my share of bad relationships and probably more bad relationships than good. And I should never, ever sit here at my ripe old age of almost 28 in 2 weeks and say, I finally deserve to be in the good relationship that I'm in because I went through all of those bad relationships and it made me strong or it made me better and it made me understand what I wanted out of life. I shouldn't have had to go through that. To be clear, I should not have had to go through those experiences. And for me to find the good in something or the good in struggle, that's yes, good on its face, but I don't think that that is a requirement in order to find good love, is that you have to first experience bad love. And I think that a lot of her romances send a really bad message. Personally, I also think that a lot of them are miscategorized. I don't think that they should be considered romance. I think they should be considered thriller and suspense. However, side tangent, that being said, the only book that I consider redeemable, miscategorized, yes, but the only book I consider redeemable if it was put into the right category is Verity. I haven't read the book personally myself, but I've seen a lot of YouTubers cover it and I find it very interesting. I think that the plot itself is rather interesting. However, I think that it is miscategorized as a romance. I think that it should be categorized as a thriller, and honestly, it might even sell well as a movie or a TV show as a thriller if it is marketed, shot, and produced that way. Hello, yes, moving on. Next is Haunting Adeline. I know, I'm back to hating on what the book talk girlies like. I'm so sorry. I am just not into dark romance that has to do with like abusive stalkers and who are exhibiting homicidal tendencies and there's like guns and knives involved, and not for me. You can give me a dark romance where like they kiss the ground I walk on and they still do bad things, but not to me. I don't find men threatening me sexy, no matter how hot they are. Upon looking further into this author, I don't know why I would not consider them to be their own category, but specifically the book Credence by Penelope Douglas, for I think what could be considered obvious reasons, the uncle and cousin incest with a young, if potentially minor, teenage girl. I don't remember if she's a minor or not. Why do they have to be related? Why couldn't they just not be related? If you were going to have a why choose romance between a hot dad and a bunch of his sons, why do they have to be related? And then the next one is Birthday Girl. I think what could be considered other obvious reasons. Birthday Girl is a boyfriend's dad romance, and the dad in question is late 30s and the girl in question is 19, and the title Birthday Girl, and she's 19. I'm losing touch with reality just thinking about it. Like, it's actually making me disassociate. I can't. Next one is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I had heard a lot of good things about this book until I read the synopsis. The fact that it romanticizes a 15-year-old girl having an affair, that's not an affair, babe. That's statutory. That's prison. The entire plot of the book is about this woman now. She is now a woman, to be clear. Talking about, do I stay quiet or do I say that this relationship was consensual? It's not, babe. It wasn't consensual, babe. It was never consensual. But do I tell them that it was consensual and that I was special? I was special. Not them, though. Or does she believe that the guy who groomed her is worse than she thought? This description alone is what should have happened in Pretty Little Liars, when Ezra should have been fired and put in prison. Listen, babe, it was good television. I get it. Honestly, back then I was rooting for Ezra too, but I am old now, and that was gross. Ezra Fitz deserved prison, and so does this man. This man in My Dark Vanessa. No, absolutely not. Gross. I really don't appreciate giving an introspective devil's advocate to the Me Too movement. I don't think that is necessary or what we need. Next one is Short and Sweet, not the album by Sabrina Carpenter, which is fantastic, by the way, but Victoria Aveyard. Anything by this author is just, get it away from me. And I wanted to root for her so goddamn bad. I wanted to root for Victoria Aveyard so goddamn bad, but she truly became one of my ops in 2023. Between Red Queen and I think it was Realmbreaker. I read Realmbreaker first and I rated it 3 stars, and I was like, it's kind of okay. It's just, it needs a lot more information, and I was rooting for the villains instead of the heroes. And while that's not a terrible thing, it was just not good, period. The book needed a lot more polishing, and I think it needed some stuff cut out of it, but also it needed more explanation at the same time. I don't know. It was a very weird phenomenon I was experiencing. But Red Queen was just straight up trash. Y'all lied to me. Red Queen was another series that was floating around when I was like 15 or 16, and I also did not read it when I was that age, but I revisited it later because I said, I never read this when I was 15 to 16, and honestly, looking back, I would have been interested in this. Maybe I should look back and reread it. Nope. No, babe, maybe I could have liked it when I was 15 or 16, but when I read it at my less old age of like 23 or 24, I said, no, actually, this is not good. In fact, it was heavily plagiarizing Red Rising. TikTok girlies, do not rest. You are still on the stand being questioned because what the absolute fuck is Zodiac Academy, and why did you let it get this popular? I just know that the protagonist is named Tori Vega. Actually, her name is Tori Vega, and her sister are like the last of the fairies or something, and they need to ascend their throne if they can graduate from Zodiac Academy. And there's like 10 books. Explain. Why? Who was asking? Who has asked? Where is the demand? I have to admit, this next one kind of hurts. Do you know why? Because it's being released on my fucking birthday. I honestly will sit here and I will admit, I will reflect, and I will tell you that I did rate Fourth Wing 5 stars. I have since rescinded my review. However, I thought it was a silly, goofy, fun little time. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was different. I thought it was silly, okay? It was a fun time, okay? But then Iron Flame came out, and that shit was fucking terrible. And I swore off the series because I said there is no fucking way. Rebecca Yarros had something semi-interesting with Fourth Wing, and I invite all of you to watch this very short, very brief YouTube video explaining how and why she had something semi-interesting on her hands. However, Iron Flame ruined all of that. I listened to the Iron Flame audiobook during my 14, yes, it was supposed to be 16-hour drive from Florida back to Missouri after my dad's very sudden, very unexpected, very untimely extraction from this world. It's been a year, but somehow it doesn't feel like that. Sorry, Dad. And I gotta tell you, that book was fucking terrible. It was the first book I finished in 2024. I was already driving 1,500 plus miles and shaving 2 hours off of my drive time in order to get home. I was listening to it at 2.5x speed, and I don't remember if I did this before or after I finished it, but I was on the phone with my ex-boyfriend during that drive, and I don't remember if it was before or after I finished that audiobook, and I'd like to remember that phone call. It was a nice phone call. We're still friends. But I'd like to hope that that phone call took place after I finished, because I don't remember if I talked about how bad it was, but I hope I did. I hope I shared my grievances of that book with my ex-boyfriend. If your sequel is so bad that I wish to reflect on it as a positive thing I talked about in a discussion with my ex-boyfriend following the untimely death of my father, and then you have the audacity to release the next book on my birthday.
And you did it at my birthday dinner.
This is a crime against me personally. Sorry, didn't mean to jump scare you. Editing Gia here. If anybody would like a video entitled something along the lines of Rebecca Yarros ruined my birthday, please let me know, because I just thought of that video title as I was editing. I will be watching a bunch of videos hating on it because I know it's going to be bad, and I wish to give people my watch time in return for their torture that I have chosen to skip out on, especially Crimson Rogue. Please go subscribe to him. He's another one of my favorite content creators. He's hysterical, and his coverage of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame was very good. I agree with everything he said. Just speed up the video to 1.5 speed. You'll be fine. I'm so out of practice of talking on camera. It's been an hour and I have 3 more, but they're short. This next category is any fictional adaptation of the real relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, i.e. the books Roughing the Princess and Blinded by the Spotlight. Now, when I saw that Ivy Smoke was responsible for one of these, I was not surprised, but also I did that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where I was holding a cigarette and like pointing at the camera, because I've read a book by her before, but it was like many years ago, back when I was reading free books off of Apple Books. Maybe I'll reread that this year just for fun. I don't even remember what it was about, but I think it was like college student, college professor. The last 2 I'm just going to combine because they're basically the same thing, and now that I'm thinking about it, could be considered a little bit controversial, but there is no way ever that you could ever convince me to read either a hockey romance or a sports romance. I tried to read Icebreaker, and I could not. It actually went back to the library, and I had to take it, like wait on hold for it again to take it out again, and then I still didn't finish it, and that's when I just considered it to be over. When I tell you that shit was boring and rushed at the same time, I don't know how that was possible, and honestly, it's just made me swear off all sports romance. I simply do not yearn to be an NFL wife. I, however, have the utmost respect for women who are NFL wives, NFL girlfriends. I'm a Swiftie. I am a Swiftie, after all. We love. I don't think it's for me. I think it would have to be a particularly good one in order to change my mind. Because any sort of sports romance, I'm not going to reach for a sports romance like I would reach for, say, a paranormal romance. Any sort of regular vampire romance is going to scratch an itch that I might have, but I don't feel the same about a sports romance. Like, I don't yearn to hear about a fictional sports team that I don't give a fuck about because don't give a fuck about sports. I do like the Chiefs, though, because I live in Missouri. And I'm a Swiftie. Go Taylor's boyfriend. Have I made everybody upset? Your Honor, in my closing statement, I wish to issue a sincere apology to the Book Talk girlies for being unfairly represented in this list, because it is simply books that I have seen everywhere. And unfortunately, a lot of those are books I've seen on Book Talk and also BookTube, but I like to think that there's overlap there, you know? It is not an attack on Book Talk. I've gotten lots of good recommendations from Book Talk. It's just a lot of these that I will never read were recommended by Book Talk, but that's not your fault, and that is okay. Wow. We did it. I did it. I sat down and talked to a camera for over an hour about books I will never read as my first video I've sat down and recorded in a really long time. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Thank you. I'm really glad that I decided to do this with my Monday night. Hopefully I can turn around and edit and get it up pretty quickly. And hopefully it is not 30 minutes long and everybody skips it and hates it and doesn't watch it, because I'm hoping that I can really return to content creation this year. I know I say that every year, but it seems that every year life is always out to get me for some reason, or it's just I don't see content creation as an escape. I started to view it as a job at some point, and it wasn't, because it wasn't earning me any money. So if anything, it was unpaid labor. So I have to look at it from the perspective of being a labor of love, and I have to stop with any sort of particular goals I might have and just make stuff to make stuff and just to have fun. And I need to really circle back to that. I need to stop making things so structured. Anyway, nobody likes it when I ramble on at the end like this. I might just edit this out. If you got to the end of this video, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you'd like to find me anywhere else, you can find me on Twitter. I can't even say you could find me on TikTok or Instagram because I let those socials die out too. So you could find me on Twitter. That's where I am all the time. That's where you can find me. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.